where I remember very distinctly, I was warming up at the gym and it just popped in my head. I was like, well, why don't I just do this and do it for the queer community? And why don't I call it Disco Fizz? Like it just like
Wow.
arrived. So, I mean, it was like, at that point, a year and a half of lived experience. I was like really thinking about it professionally. I was like, I wonder if I could go work for one, or if I like could do some consulting, or like just even like find the clients that I have at my job that are big alcohol conglomerates and talk to them about it, just whatever. Like I was thinking about it and it just all combined, and, like kind of lightning bolt kind of cliche thing of like,
Love that. Yeah.
it happened. And then the task became, how do I do that? Because I knew
Right.
nothing about beverage.
The Oprah aha moment. I love those. That's
It was
fantastic.
a total aha moment. Yeah. It arrived like fully formed. Like I knew what it would look like. I like it was very like, yeah, moment of its truth.
Well, all righty. Welcome back, friends. I am your host, Scott Fullerton, founder of the LGBTQ Success Syndicate, hosted on the school platform. I also own my own LGBTQ business and media consulting company and the Left is Straight podcast network. I am so excited to have in studio with me today Mr. Ben Zumsteg. He's bringing brand intelligence and lived experience into the beverage space. After 15 years' experience as a brand strategist, he's launched Disco Fizz, a new energy drink positioned as a bold, alcohol-free option. He's designed a starting marketing strategy to launch in the LGBTQ bar spaces and is quickly becoming a staple in some of New York City's favorite bars and lounges. His background in luxury branding gives him a sharp understanding of perception, positioning, and consumer identity, skills central to building standout brands. So I can't wait to talk to him all about this new company and has he adopted his learned experience into launching a new project. So please welcome to the show, Mr. Ben Zumsteg. Ben, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you. I've been following along the story on LinkedIn and Instagram, and congratulations. We're about, what, 6 to 8 weeks in and going good, it looks like.
Yeah, we're 3 months in, 3 months and change, but
Wow.
really 2 years of work,
Well,
but
sure.
3 months in.
The background, I'm sure, was huge. Of
Yeah.
course. Let's talk about a little bit of you first. Talk to me about what originally pulled you into brand strategy and advertising in the first place. You've been doing this for like, what, 13 years or so?
Yeah, 15 years or so, a little bit more in the workforce before that. But I don't know. I think man, it's been a while since I've talked about why I like working in brand strategy. I think that I have always, as a kid, I was even drawn to um like world building in a way. Like I was really obsessed with like Sim City and things like that. As I grew up, I think I was very like I grew up in like the era of like the famous Gap ads and Abercrombie and Fitch quarterlies and all of these like brands that were like, you know, shaping the way that culture moved and how we thought about, each other and thought about, I mean, you can argue for better or for worse in the case of things like Abercrombie, but at the time, that was for high schoolers, that was a really exciting thing. And as I kept like learning in high school and college, I met some people who worked in advertising. I was a good writer as a kid, so I kind of thought that it would be like I would go into copywriting because the creatives are always the people who you kind of
Sure.
hear about. Like even in Mad Men, it was the creatives, and I did a little bit of that. I explored it a little bit, and then as I was just as I graduated from school, I discovered that there was this thing called brand strategy, and as I learned more about it, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. I want to be the person who doesn't necessarily like make the castle pretty. I want to be the person who designs like how big it should be, how many rooms it should have, and like who's going to live in it, you know?
Well said. I like
And
that. Good analogy.
yeah, that's the metaphor I use. And the ability to set the vision for a brand, to set the direction for it for other brilliant people to bring to life. was really exciting to me. So I didn't have to worry about like writing multiple copy lines over and over again. It was more about like the thinking of like, what should the brand stand for? What is it? How do we meet its business challenges? All of that stuff. So I through like just a series of, life choices and events, I made my way to New York and ended up working, getting a great job early on and trained by really talented brand strategists and have been here and working in that field ever since. And that's still the reason I like it. And that's really informed how I approached building Disco Fizz as well.
I love that. I mean, being in the business, I mean, those of us that are in marketing, advertising, public relations, everyone thinks it's the same thing, but there's very distinct strategies for different things, right? So
Yeah, and even
you're
within
part of it once you
advertising.
get in it.
Yeah. It's a very complex world.
Well, I want to get into your new business because I'm very excited about it for you. I mean, I did read you stopped drinking about 3 years ago or so, but you were also raised Mormon. Did either of those have more of a
Oh,
push towards the non-alcoholic space than the other? Or were they kind of just
oh.
not part of it at all?
Yeah, no, I've talked a little bit about this. I think they have equal, it is funny that now like Mormons are so anti-drinking, and now I'm like building a brand that's non-alcoholic. It's very full circle, but in a very different way. No, I think growing up Mormon, where it is so forbidden, it it makes you want it more. And so when I obviously left home and really officially left the religion, though I came out at 14, it was an expression of like freedom from the religion. And I went to school in downtown Chicago, at DePaul, and very close to the Boys Town bars, and promptly got myself a fake ID. And so I also learned that drinking was a way to belong. This is pre-apps, pre-everything. And like, these bars are spaces and they matter for a reason, but they center around alcohol. And so the way to fit in those spaces is to
Yeah.
drink and drink a lot. So I think I learned really early, like these two things of like, it's freedom from that life you didn't want to have and kind of sticking it to your parents and stuff, to the religion. And also like, this is my way to belong. And I think that just over time created a kind of disordered relationship with it that didn't really serve me. And I eventually got to a place 3 years ago where I was like, I'm not, I'm not feeling this anymore. It's not good for me. But then, of course, once I quit, I realized that one of the really difficult things about quitting in the gay community and the queer community is all of our spaces center around alcohol. And because of that, there aren't a lot of great choices in our spaces that are non-alcoholic. They're often afterthoughts, even as the non-alcoholic category, as we call it, has exploded outside of these spaces. And so when I quit, I noticed that friction of going up to the bar and being like, I guess I'll have a cranberry and soda, and settling for that, talking to other sober friends about that, or alcohol-free friends. There is also a large contingent of people who are doing other substances that mean that they cannot drink. It's dangerous for them to drink. There are parties and bars where it's like the joke is like no one's buying alcohol. Fewer people are drinking. So there are all these things kind of bubbling up in our community. And then as a brand strategist, I was very interested in the non-alcoholic category because it's like a lot of other categories that are alternatives or replacements to the default.
Mhm.
Electric vehicles, plant milks, these things that replace the thing that we've always had and expected and thought that was always going to be the default. And I worked on electric vehicles for a while, and there has been a major shift in the way that electric vehicles talk about themselves from you're doing good for the planet, it's more responsible, to they're really sexy, futuristic, and fast, and you're doing good for the planet. And I think that that's the space that non-alcoholic is in right now, where it was like, there's a lot of brands that are like, replace your nightly glass of wine, wake up feeling better than you would have, like this kind of moralizing about drinking that everyone knows. You don't need to tell
Yeah.
people that they're going to feel bad when they wake up the next day. And so I was also just intellectually thinking about this category and like, why is this category moralizing to people and presuming that people haven't already made the choice when they're like pinging them on Instagram ads or anything else and telling them to stop drinking. And that's just also a bad business decision. You shouldn't sell against this massive industry, like sell while you're good. And it all coalesced one day, like actually almost exactly 2 years ago, where I remember very distinctly, I was warming up at the gym and it just popped in my head. I was like, well, why don't I just do this and do it for the queer community? And why don't I call it Disco Fizz? Like it just like
Wow.
arrived. So, I mean, it was like, at that point, a year and a half of lived experience. I was like really thinking about it professionally. I was like, I wonder if I could go work for one, or if I like could do some consulting, or like just even like find the clients that I have at my job that are big alcohol conglomerates and talk to them about it, just whatever. Like I was thinking about it and it just all combined, and, like kind of lightning bolt kind of cliche thing of like,
Love that. Yeah.
it happened. And then the task became, how do I do that? Because I knew
Right.
nothing about beverage.
The Oprah aha moment. I love those. That's
It was
fantastic.
a total aha moment. Yeah. It arrived like fully formed. Like I knew what it would look like. I like it was very like, yeah, moment of
Well,
inspiration.
talk about, I mean, I explained it in the introduction as an energy drink. Is that how you consider it? Because you have very, I mean, I think what Red Bull has 111 grams of caffeine, which is the big
Depends on the size.
energy, quote
Yeah.
energy part. You're like 30, 60, and 90. So you're not, you give an option for it. But how do you
Yeah.
classify yourself?
It's a really good question because I'm thinking about it right now. On the can, we say sparkling energy right now. And that is the primary function. There's also hydration in it with sea salt electrolytes. So it's actually a dual function product, which there are a fair amount of those coming out that are targeting other types of people, other occasions, especially fitness. But the original idea that I worked on with the formulator, there's, these people called formulators who work on
Sure.
drink recipes, was energy centered. It was about, this high energy social occasions that energy drinks or yerba mates, club mate as an example is super popular in Germany because it got in with the like Berlin techno rave scene. There are all of these, energy centric drinks that have become
Right.
embraced by nightlife and by the queer community, whether they actually like the product or not, which we'll get to. But I mean, so we are calling it sparkling energy right now. I'm actually in a place where I'm going, actually, is it a sparkling functional drink? And the function is energy and hydration. And the reason for that is that it is kind of a shapeshifter of a product because it's not aggro Red Bull Celsius energy, right? Or
Right.
Monster. It's not as high, and that's on purpose because people are concerned about overall caffeine intake, not like caffeine as a substance, but just how much they're drinking of it.
Sure.
But also the non-alc world is all about down regulation and THC, ashwagandha, all of these adaptogenic
Okay.
ingredients that
Yeah.
are about calming, which isn't right for nightlife. um, And so I think if I'm actually thinking about like, is it a functional drink that in bars and clubs is really an energy drink? And in non-alcoholic settings like, bottle shops and stuff like that is like the up NA, right? So do I actually, from a positioning standpoint, need to position it as a functional that happens to have energy and hydration? So it's a question that's kind of unanswered. But I will say in the place where we're building the brand, it is an energy drink. And what happens is that because of the way we develop the flavors, there's a moment of surprise when people drink it because it's actually tasty. I'm like, it's actually like a sophisticated set of flavors and it's complex but easy to drink. So, and they associate energy with like syrupy, fake, what even is that flavor type of drinks that they kind of just drink as medicine, as a function versus an actual enjoyable drink. So, all it is to say, like, that's an actual thing we're figuring out live as we figure out product market fit, which it seems like we have. But it's like, what is that? What is that product that we're calling this? Typically in my day job, I'd want that figured out before launch. But what I've loved about it is seeing how people react to different aspects of it, centered around energy, of course, but like the need is different in different contexts. And so I think making it more of a bigger functional drink that serves different needs and occasions depending on where it's sold and where you're picking it up could be an
Right.
interesting take for us. So that's something we're figuring out right now.
Yeah, and every new product has a learning curve as it goes to market, right? So you're going to have little adjustments anywhere. The thing that I was most
Yeah.
impressed about you, Ben, and the product was, I mean, there's very generic surveys out there about drinking, right? Who drinks what, when, why. You went ahead and commissioned your own. You got 1,100 people survey and kind of got your own data points. So you really are about the data behind it, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of my job, right? Like, I can't make recommendations to clients who are spending millions, hundreds of millions of dollars a year on their brands without justification, right? And it really is just like classical marketing strategy. It's like segment,
Yeah.
target, position, right? Like that's what I did was A, is the queer community a viable target? I certainly saw that there was an unmet need there, and it's a large target, even though others would consider it niche. It's 30 million people by all accounts. Then, like, what do they need? Okay, well, they need a combination of refreshment and energy. They're reaching for energy, they crave refreshment, unmet need. You know, the specific occasions of nightlife, high energy socializing, stuff like that. And then we're positioning it accordingly. So to back up, when I had the idea, I, of course, needed to validate the opportunity. Like, is this big enough? But I did do some searching. Like, I was like, is there studies? You know, I know there's studies at the Gen Pop level or specific demographics like women or whatever, or generations about like drinking rates. There's a lot of it research about addiction in the queer community, unsurprisingly. There's not really any research out there about just who drinks and who doesn't. You just, I think a lot of people might just apply the population level stuff to the queer community. And so that did feel like an opportunity for me up front to go, I need to go find out. Like, I'm not going to do this unless I feel that there's a viable market there and that I know exactly what they want. Because at that time, I didn't know what Disco Fizz was going to be other than carbonated because it was fizz. And I like carbonated drinks, so I wanted to make something I wanted. But so yeah, I worked with a former colleague of mine who specializes in quantitative research as a freelancer, and we designed the survey, and we designed it from like, do you drink, how often, all of that stuff, to what do you drink non-alc in these settings, from clubs and bars to social spaces to parties at home or whatever. And then what do you want when you're ordering a drink? What do you remember buying in the past 10 days to find differences in those things? And then we tested some like very high level concepts about like, you know, a non-alc for this community or a non-alc for nightlife or whatever. And the good news was there was positive response to that. So what we were able to surface was what I just mentioned, was this like energy is the most often purchased, or something that contains energy is the most often purchased thing at bars, that people reported. So Diet Cokes, you know, caffeinated sodas, Red Bulls, whatever. That's the number one purchase, but the number one desire, the number one driver is refreshment, which indicates that they're not getting both, right?
Yeah.
They're reaching for something, but they still want refreshment. And so that kind of combined into the concept that we have, which is like, has energy drink functionality, but is far more refreshing, lighter, better flavors, all of that stuff.
Love that you zoomed in to start on the LGBT community bars. I mean, anyone that's watched Shark Tank more than 2 episodes know that beverages and food's a very hard space to get into, right? If you go retail wise, if you go to that, probably one of the most difficult spaces. So having that kind of launch strategy go to the bars, I think, is a genius idea, and it really kind of pulls from that ideal customer of what you establish, right? You're able to kind of know exactly how you're marketing to these people that kind of help shape it as it went for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was my experience, right? So it was about validating that my experience was common. And then from there, it was like, yeah, we'll go to bars, and kind of naively, before I knew what distributors were and brokers and all of this complexity in the non-alc space, or just the bar space. But where is it going to go with that? I think it also, like, as I got my mind around doing an energy drink, like when the formulators were like, we looked at your data, we think that there's this opportunity for like, they called it an invigorating drink, like refreshing, sensory, and energy delivery. I was like,
Right.
that's really cool. But like, I was like, I didn't set out to make an energy drink. Like, there's a little bit of stigma with the energy drink world, I
Of
find,
course. Yeah.
because it's just like aggro and it's gross and it's a necessary evil for people. And what I started to get my mind around was like, actually, there is a way to do an energy drink that is not of this world of, Monster or Celsius, like of the fitness world, or there's even like energy drinks out there that, good for them, are like going after the like, Pilates princesses, women influencer world, and they're pink and it's called, things that are super girly. And I'm like, do that. But the reality is, a lot of people from my data and just anecdotally are drinking energy in bars and
Right.
like need it. And no one is building one that looks good to hold and feels right to hold in this setting. Even Red Bull doesn't really look like it belongs in a bar. It's just there because it's so big and everyone buys it because it's the default, right? And so even just from like a positioning and like creative world standpoint, I was like, no one has built an energy drink or even many like non-alc drinks at all centered around nightlife, like the feeling of nightlife, the colors of nightlife. So that felt instantly like, oh, okay, I can wrap my mind around that because it's an energy drink, but it's a completely different point of view for an energy drink. And I love working on brands in my day job where we go like, we're going to disrupt or zag or whatever the agency calls it. Like, this is a total zag strategy of like, it's,
Yeah.
there are other energy hydration drinks out there. I think my product is really good, but we're going after a completely different world. And so then it makes sense to build the brand on premise. That is a harder road, I
Sure.
will admit, but people instantly go like, like people just have repeated back like, oh, the nightlife drink. This is a nightlife drink. They don't
Right.
say that about Red Bull, even if they drink it at night at
Yeah.
bars. Red Bull. So that's been it's been really challenging to bring that to life, but I feel really good about that because it is a total zag from not just from a brand identity perspective, but like not many energy drinks really build themselves on premise in bars.
Well, I want to talk about the marketing aspect for a bit because I think it's really genius in a lot of things you've done, and whether it's all from your background or where you have input. A couple of things I like: the packaging is amazing, of course. And you're doing the mini influencer marketing. You're getting a lot of people talking about it, which my buddy Matt Scalarutti, you probably know, that's what his whole company is about, using those kind of micro influencers. And so
Yep.
it always like I mean, we know in marketing, right? You don't want to show a cruise ship. You want to show people in the pool on the cruise, right? So you,
Yeah.
you kind of want to show that. And that's what I think the mini influence is about. People talk about the product. And I think you're selling it the correct way, even though it's going in energy space. You also have the low calorie, the low sugar. And let's face it, a lot of people are using Red Bull to amp up their alcoholic drinks, right? They're trying to get a quicker buzz with that, and you're not selling it that way at all, which I think is a great perspective as well. So, talk about the marketing aspect of it. How has that been for you? I mean, it just seems like a home run every step you've taken so far.
Thanks. I mean, a lot of it is out of necessity. Like I'm bootstrapped, so I don't have a ton of money. But I can talk through like from the brand development, like the identity of it, through to how we're launching it. So the brand I worked on with a very good friend of mine, Manny Fernandez, who's a creative in Chicago. We've known each other for God, like 25 years. And no, not 25, a little over 20. And he's an advertising creative, a designer, and I instantly knew I wanted him to work on it, even though I have a lot of people in my network here because he's queer and he has a really sophisticated design sense. Like he gets, we always like message back and forth about fashion and luxury stuff. I just knew he'd bring like a really sophisticated design sense to it because disco could easily go cliche, bell bottoms, ugly like swirly fonts, just like a really cliche like disco ball. It could get a little chintzy, and I knew he wouldn't do. Um, so I didn't even like. I gave him a couple images that I'd found over time that I thought like had like sort of a disco vibe that were like um either like a lot of like I loved like the notion of like lasers in the dark during a dance event, like color kind of cutting through dark was kind of interesting to me, and a way to do colorful brand without going to like rainbow flag.
Right.
And then there were some fashion shoot things that I found that were like disco in nature, but very like shutter delay, like blurred, like lots of movement, but also like very sparkly. Like I liked this notion of like movement and light and color. And so we looked last year at a couple different directions, and there was just one that instantly like this kind of wasn't italicized at the time, but it reminded me of the NASA logo, like the kind
Okay.
of the worm, the caterpillar was whatever it's called. So I liked that kind of retro but very modern and futuristic look. And there was all of this kind of like he had this disco ball in the first concept, kind of abstract, but what I loved was that it looked like bubbles. So it was
Right.
like, and all the color was there and it was dark and light. He had another very like almost like club kid, like weird juxtapositions of things. And I loved it, but it looked really hard to do. So, and this was just like an instant winner. And then like we played with the type. So we liked that that's kind of like angled upward thing felt very dynamic. Then the first pressure test of the brand was really the can because we had to make the cans well ahead of time. And I was working, one of the people behind the brand who's given me a lot of expertise through this is a guy named Henry Ellis, who is a co-founder of Gia, if you're familiar with Gia, non-alc aperitif brand, very different occasion target, but great tasting product, beautifully designed. So, and he was consulting at the time. So he helped me take the formula to commercialization, but also helped me get this made, like the cans, who
Nice.
to go to. So worked with him in terms of like what the can should do, just like the parameters, what size it should be. There's different, proportions of 8.5
Sure.
and where we'll print it, and he was able to like work with the printer so we have like this matte texture that actually like up close is a little sparkly, which I wasn't expecting. And then the actual text is just the bare aluminum.
Right.
We played with should it be bare aluminum and then color on it. It looks pretty good, but like it looked like a lot of other brands that have bare aluminum. I mean, Red Bull has some bare aluminum. So I liked that it was black and dark. And then we played with this kind of like, motif of the
Right.
bubbles from the logo as kind of borders to give you like if the cans are next to each other on a shelf, a consistent color band, right?
Love that. Yeah.
So and then, the gradient is nice, gives it a little bit of depth. And a friend of mine, Wesley Tibbs, wrote the copy on it and some of the kind of just the voice of the brand, which is kind of a little saucy and cute. And yeah, then we got the cans made in December.
Yeah, I like that. I think advertising the same way. You find your chosen family of people you like to work with, like we do as an LGBT brand, when you're
Yeah.
doing it. And if you have your go-to people, so that's great. You have that kind of support team behind you. I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about pricing. Of course, we don't want to get into the nitty-gritty behind that, but you're based in New York City. I go to Palm Springs a lot. We're
Yep.
talking high end there, right? I'm in
Yep.
Akron, Ohio area. Big
Yep.
difference in clientele. How does that factor into something like that to keep it marketable? And that's got to
Sure.
be an issue just in and of itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, the overall approach to pricing is that it's priced a little bit more, it's more priced similarly to a energy drink than it is a non-alcoholic drink. Cause I think one of the issues that the non-alcoholic category is facing is it's expensive. Like, mocktails made at a bar are not that much cheaper than cocktails. Some bars are really mindful of that, others are not.
Right.
because it takes a lot of ingredients. Some of the ingredients, like non-alcoholic spirits, are expensive because they're de-alcoholized, and it's expensive to do that. And so there is a price perception issue in the non-alc world right now.
Yeah.
And people go, this is kind of expensive juice, especially when there's no function. And then on the energy drink side, they tend to be cheaper, but almost to the point where they feel cheap, like they're cheap ingredients or fake sweeteners and all those things.
Taste it. They taste cheap.
Yeah, it tastes like it. Even if they load it up with like B vitamins and stuff, like it doesn't taste like a quality drink, right? And I think that, again, that goes back to that energy refreshment tension that we had in our data. So we are priced, I would say, at the top end of energy, but below like non-alcoholic cocktails like Gia, Lapos, Pathfinder, brands like that. And that's intentional. And like Phony Negronis too are quite expensive. They're in glass bottles and stuff, but so they have a premium positioning. But what I like about that is that we're signaling that we're a better quality energy drink for sure, even if you're paying a bit more. But we're also signaling that we are addressing that barrier that people have with non-alcoholic mocktails that is like they don't have a lot of function, or the function isn't right, and they're expensive. So in New York, and other major like LA, those types of markets, like you were saying, at a bar, you'll probably pay 8 to 12 for a can. Which is, again, like 8 is probably the typical Red Bull, maybe 6 or 7. New York is obviously on the top end of all of this, right? So, there are bars where Red Bulls are $13. So, and so when I talk to bar owners, they're like, how should we price this? I say, start at Red Bull or slightly above. That's what I tell them. So, when we, and then for a case, it's the same. And then at retail, as we're starting to talk to retailers again, not in smaller markets yet, but we're saying, 4 to 5 MSRP, which again is below some of those more expensive mocktails per can. And then, and at the top end of energy. And we are smaller. The other thing that we're doing is that we'll probably not go into like the cooler with all the energy drinks, right? Because people are just scanning and going, okay, how much caffeine can I get for the least amount of money? It's kind of an arms race in that category. We're not going to do well there, right? Like very clear about that. But in the non-alc sections, which are becoming bigger and better supported by a lot of retailers, and of course in non-alc bottle shops, we stand out because we have a function that's different and we're priced lower. Again, it's like the on-premise story in bars and clubs is going to be very different than the off-premise, like, because the competitive set is almost different per channel. But yeah, that's what we're aiming for. And, from a COGS and profitability perspective, beverage is a scale game. So you get more profitable the more you make.
Right. Sure.
We purposefully made as little as we could to start, just to get product market fit right and get people trying it. And as we scale, that pricing structure will get better and better for us.
Nice. Talk to me about what this first 3 months have taught you. Any surprises you weren't expecting? How do you feel these first 3 months are going for you personally? Are they as expected? A couple of different roadblocks you weren't expecting?
Oh, I mean, it's been great. It's been awesome. Like it's been so fulfilling, to be honest. I think, everyone who I talked to before I really started doing this in beverage was like, beverage is really hard and it's really expensive. So I knew that going in. It only gets more and more complex, just again, like I was saying, like distributors and, working with bigger retailers and just all the players involved. And so that the complexity of the world is a lot to figure out. And as a little young brand, there's only so many places you can go when you don't have access to those things yet. They almost like want you to prove yourself on your own.
Right.
And then see if there's velocity and loyalty there and all of that stuff. So you really have to like do a lot of the legwork yourself. Like I just spent my morning packing like 15 boxes to send various places because I don't have a third party logistics company yet. But the good surprises have been like how much people have embraced the product and the brand. Like I really was just like, I have no idea. Like I like it. I like drinking it. I had friends try it when I was developing it. I showed off the can before we made it and people liked it, but you just don't know. And I sample regularly. I sample every week at various places, sometimes multiple times a week. And I've had very little like, like, and I think I've gotten one, I hated it. That was just a person who I knew would not be filtered. So people are really, really I've been very, very encouraged by how much people like it and how much people like the brand.
Yeah.
I've been encouraged by how people get it. Like they try it and they're like, oh, I don't have to drink a Red Bull anymore. Or, oh, this is like a better, like, oh, like when I go out, I can drink this. Like people get what it's for, which is awesome. Like I was worried about like product education and justifying my place. And I think when people try it, they get it. And that's the most you can ask for. I would also just say that like it shouldn't be surprising to me, but I've just been so amazed by how generous the community is. There is real power in doing something by us and at least to start for us. And
That filters
people
into
that
my next question, actually, because I was asking, I saw like the many influencers and the drag queens, the people
yeah.
talking, and you need to build a community online anymore to be successful. We know in marketing, right? And so you need to kind of build that community out in different directions. So that's got to be a great starting point where you're finding.
Well, yeah, and also, but just also like how willing people have been to do that. Like, my bet would like no one's approached Marty Gold Cummings in the energy market. Like, no one's approached, James Anthony, DJ James Anthony. Like they're because they know that it would be like, why me? Like I don't like what's this like just this brand share my value. Like, and I think what's been so great is like, people have just been so willing to promote it and talk about it and share it. And that I think really speaks to the power of doing something that really feels like it gets us, and it gets what we do, especially like DJs and entertainers in the nightlife space. It's just like this is their world. The disco is their world. Like, and so we're making something for them. And then just beyond that, people just willing to be like, I know this owner, I know this manager, I know this person here. Like just the gay mafia really like is a thing and in a great way. And I think the way we built this brand on top of having a good product just makes that easier because it's just like, oh yeah, that sounds fun. Let's try it. Like it just makes the conversations easier versus like a brand that, from well outside our world would have like a little bit harder time just building it organically like this, I think.
And you're doing it so right. I mean, you're reaching out to different communities that you'll help them if they want to help. I mean, user generated content is the golden city in marketing right now, right? So when you're willing to kind of go out and help these other people and have them talk about it, that's the best word of mouth you can get. So
Yeah, and it's really I mean, it's really different to the way I typically do things in my day job. Like on these big brands, it's like you have a big brand idea or a campaign and like UGC and influencer marketing is slots into that, right? And so I've worked on stuff where that's a huge part of it or like the center of gravity for it, but there's often like all this like creative development that happens before that. And
right.
I'm doing that completely opposite here. Like I didn't have my product shot before we launched. I didn't have a ton of lifestyle assets. Like we've just captured those. Everything has been from paying my friends who are nightlife photographers to follow me around in a bar and capture what we're doing. And
Works.
so that
It
we're just
works well.
capturing it and I'm so fortunate that I've friends who are brilliant photographers in this space who know how to capture a product in pitch black environments. But
I love that.
so it's been an adventure for me professionally because I'm like putting this out there without some like big splashy launch campaign. We're just like building it. And some of the influencer posts we've gotten have just been through like messaging someone on Instagram and saying, "Hey, I'd love to send you some." And I send them stuff and then they like make a post about it. I'm like, I didn't even ask you to do that, but that's so generous of you. And so
Exactly.
I think it speaks to just this like latent need that people had, and then this brand that people like have fun talking about. And we're just riding that wave for now. We'll have to be a little bit more buttoned up in the future, but right now it's just like, let's just see who likes talking about it, and we'll go from there.
I love it. We're going to do one more serious question, and then I always
Okay.
do a goofy 5 questions with at the
Okay.
end here. So
Okay.
tell me about, what does success look like to you in the end of year one? I mean, not
Oh,
I say, but for year one, what success look like for you?
Um, wow. I think success in year one is really being dense in New York City for sure. Like being established, being like almost an expected thing that is offered in a lot of the places that people go in our community. Which means, I have another 40 to 50 things like places on my pipeline that I need to hit. But, hopefully through stuff we do on Fire Island this year, that it's just like that brand that's out there that people know about and people come to expect and start asking for. Obviously, from a business perspective, if I'm in 50 to 100 places in New York by the end of the year, that's great. I'm super excited about that. Um, there will probably also be some other markets that just organically grow because there's a demand there, and that'll be like icing on the cake. So yeah, I would just say that it's kind of that it becomes this thing that people are looking for and wanting when they're going out. Like that would just be a thing that I really would be happy about and proud of. And whatever business result comes from that is great, but it goes back to just like being in as many places as possible where people are going.
Very well said. Fantastic interview, my friend. I always finish up with 5 questions though this is 5 questions with Ben Zumsteg.
okay.
Question number one for you, Ben. I mean, you're going to all these bars, you're doing some great market research and sharing your product. What is your go-to karaoke anthem?
I haven't done it in a long time, but my go-to karaoke anthem is the first karaoke song I ever did, which is Like a Prayer.
You froze
You
on me.
froze
All
for a
right,
little bit
start
there.
again. All right, we'll go
Yeah,
again.
we both froze.
All right.
Yeah.
What is your go-to karaoke anthem, Ben?
My go-to karaoke anthem is the first karaoke song I ever did, which is Like a Prayer by Madonna.
There you go, little Madonna, old school.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
All right, question number two. We talked a little bit in the interview about some great influencer marketing and just some great people enjoying your product. Who is your dream celeb sipping a Disco Fizz at the bar?
Easy answer. Kylie Minogue.
Nice, 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 nice. And she would do it too.
And she has an album called Disco. One of my favorite songs of hers is Your Disco Needs You. I mean, I'm manifesting that someday.
I love that. Question number three. So you can't type Kylie, she's a little young. Who is your favorite disco icon?
Disco icon. I mean, it feels maybe there's different ways to define that. I mean, I love Sylvester just for what Sylvester represented at that time. I mean, there's
Very
there's
much.
also the usual suspects of like, Donna Summer and stuff, but like Sylvester was so like themself in that time, like is just so and like still had such success at that time. And has such classic songs from that era is just so admirable. So yeah,
As a
Sylvester.
bear from a certain age, I appreciate that answer. Believe me, so very good. I like it. I'm a little older than you in the tooth here. All right. Question number four: sweet, tart, or a wild flavor?
It's a wild flavor.
Something exotic. I don't know. Something
Okay.
different.
I have a major sweet tooth, so I'd say sweet. I mean,
Nice.
it's funny that my drink is low sugar, but yeah, candy is my downfall. So
Nice.
sweet. Yeah.
And we'll finish up on a marketing question as an expert marketer that you are. What, in your opinion these days, is just the most extra opinion in marketing and branding?
Extra in like a way that I don't
Extra is
like.
like over the top or done with or overused.
You know what I'm done with? I'm done with people saying,
Nice.
like, this trend, this thing is dead. Or like the companion, like this generation has killed this. Like, I'm just tired of these like big pronouncements about like something being dead. It's just like you're just doing that for clicks. And then usually once you read the article or the piece, it's like it actually isn't. They're just overstating it and saying, well, like, we'll see, like I'm just tired of that. Like, it's not even a specific thing in marketing. I'm just tired of the way we talk about marketing, I guess is my
Well
issue.
said. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Zumsteg, you made it through 5 questions. Fantastic
Woo!
interview. Ben is the owner, founder of Disco Fizz, available now at select New York City bars, coming to a place near you soon. Remind everyone where they can find your website and the social media for Disco
Yeah.
Fizz.
Discofizz.com and Instagram is Drink Disco Fizz. We have the most content there, but we're starting our TikTok too, which is also Drink Disco Fizz.
Fantastic. Stay on the line for me, Ben. Guys,
Sure.
we'll be back with another mover and shaker in business right here on the LGBTQ Success Syndicate interviews. I will talk to you later. Have a great afternoon, everyone.